Hello and welcome to a demonstration of AbLead, the Antibody Analysis and Engineering Suite from Biotherapeutics Consulting. Today, rather than showing you an individual tool, I'm going to pull multiple tools together to show how a liability analysis can lead to an optimization design that leads to variant designs. So let's suppose that I'm looking at a lead set. We'll pretend that this is a discovery set against a single target, that they're all active, and I'm screening along the set, and I notice that entry 9 has a large number of stability violations as noted by likelihood differences in the large language models, and is also missing a salt bridge at the base of heavy chain CDR3 that is a stability violation. As I move along, the cysteines appear okay. There are some post-translational modifications that we can look at, and there are humanness violations. This antibody does not appear to be overly human. There might be some immunogenicity concerns. I suspect that these peptide violations are a result of the large number of large language model likelihood differences, but we will evaluate that once we build some variant designs. So let's focus on these stability violations to start with. So what I need to do is select example 9, which I've already done. You can see that it's not faded, it does not have a faded red color behind it, meaning that there's no structure associated. There is a structure associated. So I'll pull open the liabilities tool, and this will list all of the liabilities found for this molecule by AbLead. And I'm going to focus on the stability violations that are from the large language models. So I'll select AbLang, AbLang2, and IgBert. Some of them you can see both find violations, and so we'll look at that. Since I have a structure model, I can click the title here of that column and open its structure model with the liabilities shown on the model. Now these are all in ball and stick until I select entries on the grid, and I'm going to select the severe entries. Now what this is going to select are those AbLang violations that have a likelihood difference greater than or equal to 5, AbLang2 greater than or equal to 2, and IgBert greater than or equal to 2.5. And this has eliminated some of the residues from consideration. I'll only focus on the strong stability violations. And many of them are far from the paratope, the potential paratope. Even this one, probably not engaging antigen, but these two are getting a little close. I think we should pay attention to those as to how we build a variant design for these. So let's start at the top. This is position 9. It's a threonine. It's down here at the bottom. It appears to be fairly exposed, but there might be some residues that it's interacting with down here in the constant domain. So let's take a look at that. Since I have a fab structure, I can look at that. And I'll come up here to the analysis tool and open solvent exposures. Now, this is position 9 in the light chain. So in the solvent exposure tool, I'll come over here to position 9, and there's that threonine. And if I click here, it'll scroll the table to position 9, and I can see it is highly exposed, and its side chain is highly exposed. Is the side chain atoms exposed? And yes, they are. So it's not likely engaging with constant domain. It's not likely going to be an issue for function. It's not going to change the elbow angle or something like that if I make a modification at that position. So let's look at the positional frequency analysis for that site. So I'll go back to the analysis tools and open PFA. Now this is not just showing positional frequency analysis, it's also showing the large language models and their probabilities. And if I look at this position, position 9, you can see that all 3 liability models show that this is a serine, and the PFA for 214 says that it should be a serine, and that's using 12 million lambda 214 germlines in OAS to make that comparison. So if I open this up and look at threonine and serine, it's 99.2% of the time a serine. So everything agrees that this should be a serine. However, a threonine to a serine is a pretty innocuous change. There's probably not going to be much impact for this as a stability violation, but since it's there, it's exposed, it's away from everything, I'll just go ahead and make that change. So I'm going to click on this entry. I'll call it stability. I'll not include the parent because I think it's a safe change. I'll make it a serine, and I'll give it a comment, something like not likely to have much impact. If I were doing this as a long multi-hour actual liability optimization, I would put in some more details here, such as the solvent exposures, the information that I found out of PFA and the germline analysis and so on. But I'll just save that mutation. And there we see that there's a dot that appears. This position 9 is a medium violation in AbLing2 and IgBert with a strong violation in AbLing, but the position has been updated to have an engineering entry. Okay, so next let's look at this strong violation. Again, it is a violation in AbLing2 and IgBert, but not AbLing, but in multiple tools. Oh, it is AbLing, AbLing2, and IgBert, but they're it's a medium violation in those other two language models. But AbLing says it's a strong violation. Lysine to threonine is a bigger change, but let's see where this is. It's that position that's back here on CDR1. Let me redo the rotational grid. And this might have an impact on that loop orientation, especially the way that this is interacting in this sheet. It may make a change. I'm a little concerned about it, so I'm going to do this combinatorially. I will make this change, but first let's look at PFA. This is position 24. So I'll open this up. I'll look at position 24. It's right here on the edge of CDR1. This is in the north boundaries, and it says that it should be a, oh, I'm looking at the wrong position. It's heavy chain. It says that all three models plus the PFA does not like it as a lysine, but there's a difference in the large language model from PFA. Now, this is 1.7 million representations in OAS of 4.4, and it says that 0.1% of the time it's a lysine, 51% of the time it's an alanine, and only 32% of the time is it a threonine. Now, bear in mind that an evaluation of statistics against representation in OAS is looking at this as a position. It's not taking the rest of the sequence context into consideration, whereas the large language models are. So if I open up this AbLing liability and look at the threonine, the lysine, and the alanine, it doesn't like it as a lysine. It's a negative 0.8 likelihood. It has a likelihood of 2 that it would be an alanine, but a likelihood of 5.5 that it would be a threonine. So based on the context of the sequence, I'm going to go with this being a threonine. Now I could go back to liabilities and enter the violation or the mutation designs as I did before in the previous example. But in this case, I'm going to show you that you can just click here in the PFA tool as well. Again, I'll enter this as a stability group. I don't have to name the group at all, but it's good to keep track. I'm going to include the parental, and I'm going to make this a threonine. And again, you should add comments such as the evaluation that you've done, why you've made this into a threonine, but I'll leave this blank. And I'll click Save. And when I do that, you can see that engineering tag shows up on that residue. And if I click back over here, you can see the engineering button has shown up on the residue here as well. So let's reselect those severe positions and keep going down the list. Well, here's position 48. Now that you see how I do an evaluation, I'm going to do this quicker for the sake of the demo. This position is one of those that is near the bottom, not likely to have impact in antigen. This position, rotate this around so you can see it better. This position is, oh, it's showing, it maintains showing because it's a violation in two different positions. So it's right here on the side. I'll just select severe again. And this is one that I thought might have an impact on antigen engagement. Let's click on this position and see that, yes, this tyrosine is forming a hydrogen bond, but it's to the backbone. The side chain is not involved. That would impact the orientation of that CDR. This methionine might pack with other residues in a way that might shift that orientation. So even though the side chain is not involved, I'm going to make this a combinatorial variant. Now, again, I would do more analysis if I were doing this for my own lead selection, such as looking at the germline, looking at the whole sequence. I would evaluate a space fill across all of this, look at the contact analysis. I'd likely drop into the molecular operating environment to do those types of analyses on this residue. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to click on this methionine, make it or call it a stability violation, include the parent, give it a threonine, and again, I would type information into this if I were making this change for a client or my own lead. So continuing down the list, let's take this 5.2S and unselect it. It's here. And that is away, it's here, it's away from the paratope, it's off to the side, it's highly exposed. I don't think that we need to worry about it being an issue for binding, so I'm not going to include the parent. I'm going to save that as a serine as suggested by the large language model. And here's a AbLead violation, that's 5.9 E to A. The same violation here is an IgBERT, that's a medium violation, so I'm going to take this as the A. And this is also a stability violation, and I'll show you where that is. So you can see it's right down here that it's probably safe to modify. And one more, this position 97. All three of these are selected, so I'll turn those off so you can see where it is. It's right here, and I'll make that modification. All three language models say it should be an alanine, so I'll make that modification to an alanine. I don't need to include the parent, and this is a stability violation. Okay, next I'm going to focus on just the salt bridge. There's the salt bridge. I'm going to select it so you can see it. I'll rotate around so you can see where that salt bridge would lie. Now what happens is you have a D to an S. There's the D. So that aspartic acid to this arginine, should be an arginine at that position, forms a salt bridge. This is a very short heavy chain CDR3, so this salt bridge is likely not necessary. And as such, I'm apprehensive to change it, but let's take a look at other positions. So this is IMGT 106, and if we look at the PFA, I'll collapse these at 106. AbLead says it should be an arginine. Of course, the germline thinks it should be an arginine, but the two language models that lack germline bias are happy with it being a serine. So based on that, and based on the length of the heavy chain CDR3, I'm going to leave that alone because it would be a combinatorial variant, and I don't want to increase the combinatorial variant space. If this were a longer heavy chain CDR3, I would absolutely make this a combinatorial variant. Okay, so next I'm going to select all positions, clear these selections, and I'm going to unselect these stability violations that we have already looked at. And then I'm going to select the severe ones. I would go through each of them if I were actually doing this, but for the sake of this demo, I'll limit it to these that are severe. So there are 3 positions. 2 are isomerization sites, 1's a potential fragmentation site. Now, this is that aspartic acid at the base of heavy chain CDR3. It's not forming a salt bridge because that arginine is a serine, as we just saw in the stability violations, but I'm going to not pay attention to this fragmentation site. I'll show you that in PFA, this is 116. There's 116. That's the motif for that fragmentation site, and you can see that in the large language model and in the germline, it remains DPW. So I'm going to leave that position alone and just pay attention to these 2 potential aspartic acid isomerization sites. So let's take a look at this one first. You can see that this CDR forms a bit of a coil, and if I click on this position and I'll turn off the space filling, this forms a hydrogen bond with the CDR next to it, and even though it looks like, just from my view, this could potentially form a succinimide intermediate, it's not likely going to, given that it's sequestered in this hydrogen bonding, and modification of this to, say, a glutamic acid would probably disrupt the binding. So I'm not going to change that. Next, we'll look at this, this position 113. That's linear 96. And if I select this and turn it off so we can see the side chains, it's forming a hydrogen bond. It's engaged in a multi-CDR hydrogen bond network. It looks like it could form an isomerization site, but if I turn that back off, turn that on, it's off to the side. I'm a little concerned about it, but without MAM data, I'm going to leave it alone. So I've made my decisions. Again, I would spend much more time, do much more nuance. I might indeed change these combinatorially depending on the design space that I had available to me. But in this case, I'm not going to modify these. There is a non-severe position that I like to evaluate, and it's these tryptophans. They are notoriously difficult to modify. They do cause hydrophobicity. They are susceptible to light-based degradation that forms yellow color in material. They can oxidize and degrade. They can impact function, but they're likely necessary for antigen engagement. Difficult to modify, but if necessary in an actual liability repair scenario, I might try to modify these. In this example, I will not. Okay, so we've looked at solvent exposures, we've looked at PFA, we've made some designs. I mentioned that there were humanist violations that were in this molecule, so let's take a look at the humanist tool. This loads, we'll see where the violations lie. It's in this region before heavy chain CDR3. And so if I click here, it scrolls that table down and it shows us the modifications that would be necessary in order to repair this. This is saying that these 2 positions should be an alanine, and PFA agrees that they should be an alanine. And if we look, I've already repaired this one to an alanine, and I've already repaired this one to an alanine. So these were 2 of the stability violations that I've already repaired. So hopefully when we do combinatorial variant design, it will help with the humanness of this antibody. So let's go back to the entry, go to the engineering tool, which is here, and take a look at the violation space that we've built. So 2 of these I need to keep as parent out of the 6 designs that we have made, And if I scroll this Molestar window open, rotate this around, there are the positions. You can see them better if I cause this to be space filled. Those are the positions that we're going to modify in this molecule. I can come in to generate these combinations. There's the combinatorial grid. These 4 positions are the ones that are mutated across all designs, and then these 2 are built combinatorially. So it's only 4 designs that we have to make in this case. So we'll build this. This will just take a moment. So what the tool is doing is, instead of you having to go into Word or Excel or a text editor, copying the parent sequence and finding these positions by hand, mutating them to their combinatorially to their desired positions and mutation sets, prone to human error, very time consuming. I encourage you to be inherently lazy and use AbLead. So we'll return to the tool. These have now been built. If we come back over here to the example set, and I'll sort by name so it'll cluster these together, we can look at all of these as a set and see what impact we had on the various attributes. Now, we only made one modification in the light chain, so these are mainly heavy chain impacts, and you can see this here. This one position was in the light chain. So if we come back to the main grid, you can see that the heavy chain humanness was repaired tremendously as a result of those stability violation repairs. And if we come back over to the stability violations, don't be concerned about the surface properties not being calculated. We haven't calculated structure models for these. You can see that the stability violations have been repaired. But the destructed salt bridge is still in place. That was a decision that we made. If we had repaired it, it would, even combinatorially, some of the combinatorial designs would not have this, but we decided to leave it as is. So there's your combinatorial set with full calculations, including scoring. And some of these have, all of them have reduced the score, which is good. Lower is better. There's still some issues that are being counted, such as the fragmentation, the number of PTMs, that missing salt bridge. But you, the user, know that you can ignore those. You've done an evaluation. These are good leads to take forward at this point. At that point, you can export this as sequences in whatever format you'd like. You can trim it to the FV if you only want to have the FV. You can use the assembler to rebuild your modality however you see fit. You could export this into your notebooks, do an evaluation. I will show that if you were to lose the engineering sets and you wanted to, or you just wanted to see what the mutagenesis design space was, you can come down here to the mutation grid and it will show you the design space. You could regenerate the designs in the engineering tool, export this as a grid for your notebook or for communication, and that would be it. There's a lot of different tools that you could use to export, to show, or to evaluate, but that's how you build a set of combinatorial variants to repair liabilities. I hope you've enjoyed this, and feel free to reach out if you'd like a demonstration or if you have any questions. Thank you.